How goes it all? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Happy MLK Day. Hopefully you guys are doing great. Today's word of the day, and of course, obviously, I'm going to have Martin Luther King quote, is guaranteed. Guaranteed is a formal promise or assurance, typically in writing, that certain conditions will be fulfilled, especially that a product will be repaired or replaced if not a specified quality and durability. Now, when it comes to Dr. Martin Luther King, he was always ensuring that not only was he, you know, trying to look into the heart, ask people to look into their hearts and minds and whatnot, from whichever standpoint that they came from, whichever background, religion, skin color, etc., and so forth, to always look into their heart so that the United States of America could fulfill their promise and whatnot, and keep their promise and whatnot. And one of my favorite quotes by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was when he talked about more jobs and guaranteed income back in 1967, the year before he was murdered. Before he was murdered, he stated, "Guaranteed income has become a hot topic with the automation of jobs and people scraping by with minimum wage, but it's not an ideal millennials came up with at the 1967 Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Dr. King called for the creation of more jobs and guaranteed incomes. He stated, and I quote, "We must create full employment or we must create incomes. People must be made consumers by one method or the other. Once they are placed in this position, we need to be concerned that the potential of the individual is not wasted. New forms of work that enhance the social good will have to be devised for those whom traditional jobs are not available." And if you think, like I said, I'm just giving my perspective on this because I think it's a great quote. What he stated at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. One thing to remember, family, minimum wage is not that old in the United States of America. I know certain states have actually, and they can afford to do this. They've raised the minimum wage in their states and whatnot, and the states have not collapsed, so it's not the end of the world. And people's incomes have gone up. Certain jobs have become, even though I see America moving more and more towards contracting and self-employment, 1099, the whole nine. When it comes to a lot of jobs nowadays, and even something that happened to a friend of mine today from an economic standpoint. I'm not going to mention any names, any details, but I will say that it was unjust, most likely illegal, and it reminds me why you have to have backup plans in this life. You can never just depend, because one thing I can say during Dr. King's era, they had unions back then, for good or for worse. You had unions back then, and you had real pensions back then in the 1960s. So, the pensions started to die out in the 1980s, and definitely all out decimated between the 1990s and the 2000s and whatnot, from private to government to everything. The actual pension plans, back during that time, I would say from the WW2 era, World War II era, to the 1970s and 80s. That was the time in America where you could work a job and you, for the most part, you were guaranteed a pension whether you work for a government organization or you working for a major corporation. And then that was the thing. Most people wanted to work for either a government organization or a major corporation, whether it was at a plant or a corporate office, because they wanted to be able to not only get paid a decent salary, but they were able to get pensions and things of that nature. Now, we live in a time frame where more and more people, they're self-employed. They have the whole 401k thing, so and that's not really a pension plan. It's not even really meant for people to live off of. And with that being said, I see the promise of America being fulfilled on a regular basis, but being fulfilled more so with not only legislation, but definitely being filled with more and more people that are pulling their, whether it's churches, whether it's communities, pulling their resources together and people working together, purchasing assets together. I mean, I've made countless videos about when people make Especially a lot of immigrant families where they buy real estate together, they buy cars together, they open businesses together. They people get into management positions and they ensure that they hire their own people, own family members, own friends, word of mouth, the whole nine. And because of that kind of community from an economic perspective, and then from a family perspective, that's how they're able to make moves and be able to dominate certain areas, not just because of numbers, but because of the economics and all that good stuff. So, um, and with Dr. Martin Luther King, with it being his day, I just wanted to point out one of my favorite quotes by him in regards to people having full time employment, guaranteed income, and people having access to capital and things of that nature. Because I think at the end of the day, that's that's what the conversation needs to be around that. And if it's not, then to me personally, it's like if you're not talking about that, then you're not talking about anything. And I always say that if the politicians are listening, you're not talking about anything if I don't hear money on the table and whatnot. So that's just my personal opinion, and I'll leave it at that. But do the great thing for things, family. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day, and as I always say, make money moves, or you're gonna live broke like a fool. Take care, family.